by people way smarter than me about this whole internet gig that you want your content to be evergreen. You don't want to say stuff that is locked in a moment in time, because in a year, 2 years, or whatever later, it won't make as much sense. I think the thing I want to talk about at this moment, though, is going to make sense for a long period of time, because I think everybody forever will recall the disastrous first debate of the 2020 American presidential election season that took place last night. I know a bunch of people watched it. People are disillusioned. They're frustrated. They're angry at each other. What a disappointing, weird moment this is. I'm offering no political commentary whatsoever about one of the candidates or the other than to say, if you think that was a good look for our country last night, I guess you and I will just have to respectfully agree to disagree on that point. I thought it was ugly and horribly disappointing. But even more disappointing is that I feel like there's a feedback loop that's occurring right now where our awful, awful political rhetoric, just nasty, scorched earth, burn each other down political rhetoric, is informing our relationships day to day, not just on the internet. It at least used to be just on the internet, but now it's leaked over into the rest of our relationships. And it's burning bridges and creating tension and friction and nastiness between individuals. And then that informs the politicians because they feel like that gets attention and it works and that's how we are now. So then they do more of it and then we see more of it and we do more of it and then they do more of it. This just has to stop at some point. But one of the most heartbreaking things about all of this very disappointing moment we're going through right now is what it's doing to you and me. Look, I get it. People have strong feelings about government. They like things to be one way or the other. The stakes are very, very high, depending on how you look at things. I totally get it. I understand how much you care. But that stupid government stuff is not as important as your mom and your dad and your brother and your sister and my friends and my coworkers and the people that I care about, yet it's putting us in this awful position with each other. And I feel like there are people pulling our strings and getting us to get after each other in ways that are just dumb and flat out mean and flat out antithetical to the values that, Christian or not, I have to imagine every single one of us would theoretically espouse in a neutral situation, but that we seem to punt those values and the value that we place on other people, just, throw that stuff out the window when it's a political cause that gets us riled up. And so I don't think it's very hard for you or me right now as this stuff is going on to look at a passage like Matthew chapter 10 that talks about division, and it just feels like now. So, I don't know, let's break it down and think about where it's analogous and where it's not, and if there's any hope on the other side of this division that's described in this passage, because I could go for that right about now. Verse 34, "Don't suppose that I've come to bring peace to the earth. I didn't come to bring peace, but a sword. For I've come to turn a man against his father, a daughter against her mother, a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. A man's enemies will be the members of his own household. Anyone who loves his father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. Anyone who loves his son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. And anyone who does not take his cross and follow me is not worthy of me. Whoever finds his life will lose it, and whoever loses his life for my sake will find it." At first glance, this seems really discouraging and like more of the same tone that we're hearing. If Jesus is the Prince of Peace, and he is supposed to come and make things better, and level out the high stuff and fill in the low stuff and fix the afflictions and bring about justice and healing to individuals and to the people and society, then this doesn't sound like that. This doesn't sound like all of the prophets and all of the other stuff we're hearing. This sounds like the kind of garbage we had to choke down watching that debate last night. But if we look a little closer, we have to ask the question, is he describing what he wants and what he's trying to build? Or is he describing an inevitable reality of the friction that's going to come with what he's bringing? And I think it has to be the latter. All the other language up to now, 9.5 chapters of content, has indicated that he's talking about beautiful values and stuff that does ultimately result in peace. No, I think what he's talking about here is very simple. This is a passage where he's sending out a group of people who have been equipped with kingdom values, kingdom principles, kingdom power, to go out into the heart of the world where there's world values and world authorities and world currency. And these two things are not going to mesh well or easily. The world values, people aren't just going to punt on that. They're profoundly invested in that. I mean, we got to cut them a little slack here and be patient. They got money in it. They got reputation in it. They got name in it, time in it, meaning in it. And then this other kingdom comes along as like, well, your value is in the king you're associated with. And none of your other stuff really matters. It's not about that. Common sense tells us that this friction, this bringing of the sword and not immediate peace, is a natural friction that must occur when the kingdom values collide with the world values. And sometimes I can just glaze past huge chunks of Bible and be all academic about it. And every now and then it just catches me in exactly the right place, like today. And it hurts to read it. It hurts to see this reality described here. What would be way more fun is if Jesus was like, hey, I'm going to come and people are going to sign up immediately and they're going to be excited about this and you're going to have unity in your family and all the brokenness and hurt is going to be fixed right now, right off the bat, because everybody's going to be unified in bending the knee to me, the new king, and everybody's going to embrace the kingdom values of meekness and humility and grace and forgiveness, and they're going to trade in these new currencies of patience and love and doing redemptive things. That would be awesome because that would bring unity to households that are fractured. But even if every citizen of the kingdom fully embraced the values of the kingdom and were great and represented the kingdom properly and were ambassadors of grace and patience and love and kindness and all of that stuff, and even if everybody who rejected it was like, hey, but everybody's still a person here and let's be cool, even if that was the case, there would still be friction because these aren't compatible values. Jesus' kingdom values assume a life that goes beyond this life. They assume that Jesus is Lord and Master over death as well. And that reframes everything about life and death and motivation and money and people and sex and friendship and jobs, and everything is reframed. Therefore, without me even saying, everybody who doesn't believe what I believe is terrible and awful, and that's why there's friction. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is that naturalism, that you live and you die and then it's overism, leads to fundamentally different conclusions and approaches to life and values than supernaturalism and a belief in a God and a king and a kingdom and a life that goes beyond this one. The friction is inevitable. You're going to see stuff differently. And the result is at times going to flare up into some really ugly, weird things. At times it's going to look like persecution. At times it's going to look like Christians getting mad and bent out of shape and forgetting their kingdom values and doing stuff that provoke people who don't believe the same things as them. Either way, he's here to ultimately bring peace. But what Jesus is saying is, in the short term, this brings a sword. One, just to finish out this passage and land the plane on it, let none of us forget, Jesus always turns over his cards. He does not promise things that he doesn't do. He tempers expectations that might get out of control because what he's doing is a big, long-term redemptive plan that seems like slowness to us, but to him is all on a very different schedule, the schedule of somebody who existed before time began and will exist after time as we know it is done and we're into whatever else. During some of this extended redemptive time, it means that he is being patient and demonstrating forbearance towards suffering and ugliness, not just from the bad people who don't think the Christian things, but also toward all of us who do believe this stuff because we still have problems too. And fortunately, all of those prophets who Matthew is referencing and the rest of Matthew in general makes it clear that this is not the long-term plan. This is the short-term reality on the way to a long-term plan. So don't be surprised when you run into this kind of friction. But the second thing that I want to say about this particular passage is if you are feeling pain and friction over that right now, I'm sorry. I'm really genuinely sorry for all of the hurt that is going around right now, for all of the relationships that are on edge, for all of the way that half of us are scratching our heads at the other half of us, and some of us are giving in to our lesser and darker impulses to accuse and impugn motives and gossip and get after each other. All I can do is say, my friends, let's do our best during this time to treat people well, relentlessly scrutinizing ideas and thinking things through in search of truth and virtue, while also relentlessly treating people with respect, regardless of whether or not we disagree, giving them the benefit of the doubt in terms of their motives. And we don't do a lot of advice here. I think that's probably for the best, just given the nature of the medium, but I'm going to risk just a little bit of advice right now. This is one of those times where endurance, fortitude, is a really good idea. If you can gut it out for a little while, as I record this month and change, everybody's going to want you to be angry. Everybody's going to turn the dials. So many people stand to gain and to profit from getting you to part ways with your values, to part ways with other people, to be a part of division. If you refuse to do it, if you can stomach graciously letting remarks, letting things slide by, if you can choose charity and patience while still making your case or thinking whatever you think, if you can do that, there's going to be something way better for you when this silly little paper election is over and we're on the other side and we all have to come out of our holes and look at each other and be like, what did we just do to each other? Fortitude in this moment will set you up for something that is easily put back together when all of this blows over and we get to another place in the conversation. So 2 things. 1, Jesus always discloses that there will be friction. And in a weird, very, very, very roundabout way, the friction that we are enduring in our world right now is in keeping with what Jesus said, not in parting with it. He said this would be the deal. It's part of the redemptive plan. We're not supposed to like it or lean into it, but it's where we're at for the time being. Citizens of the kingdom are salt and light, preservatives in that difficult environment. 2, I'm sorry this hurts. I have the greatest confidence in you to navigate this thing with class and decency and a charity and a grace that is completely countercultural to every version of culture right now in this very difficult time. And now more than ever, it's dangerous to go alone. Take this. Remember, you've been equipped with a secret weapon in these kingdom values, and that is forgiveness. Even if other people don't forgive you, you just keep giving it away to them. And in doing so, you make the world better, you love and serve your enemies, and you preserve relationships that people who are not good actors would like to do damage to. As much as it may not sound like it in my tone of voice, I'm optimistic. I continue to believe that the redemptive values of the kingdom carried out by the agents of the kingdom are a preservative, that they do make things better. And so in that regard, I do feel a ton of hope, even in weird times. Thanks for hanging out with me. I'm Matt. This is the 10-Minute Bible Hour podcast. Let's do this again soon.